All right, I'm going to go over one of the problems on the test that was missed by a lot of people, and that was writing the equations of parallel and perpendicular lines. So your directions told you to give your answers in slope-intercept form, which remember is y equals mx plus b. The slope is your m value. It's the number in front of x. It's the coefficient of x. It doesn't include x though. And then b is your y-intercept. So if I gave you the equation y equals 3x minus 4, the slope is 3, not 3x, and the y-intercept is negative 4, which is the point 0, negative 4. Any point on the y-axis has an x of 0. Now, in order to do some of these problems, you're also going to have to know another form of a linear equation called point-slope form, which is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. You use point-slope form when you know a point and you know the slope. So again, m is your slope. Your point would go in for the x1 and the y1. The x-coordinate would, of course, go in for x1. The y-coordinate would go in for y1. You do not put numbers in for x and y. Remember, those are representing all the points on the line. Now, this form has subtraction, and so when you put your point in, it'll change the sign of those coordinates when they're plugged in. So in these four problems, you're going to have to pay attention to whether you are writing the equation of a parallel or a perpendicular line. So remember, parallel lines have the same slope. So the number in front of x would be the same. And perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. So that means you have to change the sign, opposite does. If it's positive, it becomes negative. If it's negative, it becomes positive. And reciprocal means you have to flip the fraction. The numerator becomes the denominator and the denominator becomes the numerator. You have to do both of those changes in order to get the slope of the perpendicular line. So in part A, we're writing a line that is parallel, so that means same slope, to the line y equals 2x plus 7. That equation is already in slope-intercept form, so we can recognize the slope because it's simply the number in front of x. So the slope of this line is 2. My parallel line has the same slope, so it also has a slope of 2. We want to go through this point, so we know the point and the slope. We're going to have to use point-slope form. So the x-coordinate's going to go in for my x1, the y-coordinate's going in for my y1. So I would have y minus the y-coordinate of the point I'm going through is 3 equals my slope, which is 2, times x minus the x-coordinate is negative 4. So when I subtract a negative 4, that becomes x plus 4. Now I have to give my answer in slope-intercept form. This is in point-slope form. So I have to get rid of the parentheses by distributing that slope times both terms inside the parentheses. So I would have y minus 3 equals 2 times x is 2x. 2 times 4 is positive 8. And then get y by itself by undoing the subtraction of 3 by adding 3 to both sides. So I would get y equals 2x plus 11. So my slope is 2. My y-intercept is 11. On part B, I'm writing a line that is perpendicular. Perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. The equation I'm given, again, is in slope-intercept form, so I can easily see that the slope of the given line is a positive 3. So what would be the opposite reciprocal to a positive 3? Well, the opposite sign would make it negative. Flipping the fraction, 3 is made a fraction by simply putting it over 1. So if you flip that, it becomes 1/3. So my slope needs to be negative 1/3. The opposite reciprocal of a positive 3 is a negative 1/3. Now on this one, I don't need to use point-slope form because I'm not given a point for it to go through. Well, I am, but I'm given the y-intercept, which is the point 0,4. But there's no reason to use point-slope form because I'm given my y-intercept. That is my b value. So now I know my b value and my slope, my m value. I can write the equation from here. So the equation of the perpendicular line would be y equals my new slope, negative 1/3, x, then my y-intercept, which is a positive 4. So I had a lot of people miss the y-intercept on these, and it was given to you. So that should have been a really easy point to get right there. When your y-intercept is given, that is your b value. On part C, it's a parallelogram equation for a parallel line. Remember, parallel lines have the same slope. I can't see the slope of this line, though, because this is not in slope-intercept form. So I need to get it in slope-intercept form, which means to get the y by itself on one side of the equation. So the first thing I'm going to do is subtract the 2x and add the 10. Use inverse operations. This will get the 5y by itself on the left side of the equation. Now we know what we do to one side we have to do to the other. So I'm also subtracting the 2x and adding the 10 on the right side. So I have a negative 2x plus 10 on the right side. So in other words, the 2x moved sides and changed signs. The negative 10 moved sides and changed signs. Now it's still not in slope-intercept form until the y is by itself. So I need to get rid of the 5, undoing multiplication using division. And this is where several students messed up again. They divided this side by 5, but they only divided part of this side by 5. This whole side has to be divided by 5, which means both terms get divided by 5, not just the y-intercept. So when I get my y by itself, my slope is the number in front of x, which is a negative 2 divided by 5, which is negative 2/5. My y-intercept of my given line is 10 divided by 5, which is 2. That's not really needed. All I really need to know about the given line is its slope. It is negative 2/5. Parallel lines have the same slope, so my line will also have a slope of negative 2/5. Again, in this problem, I am given the y-intercept. I do not need to use point slope form. I can go right into writing the slope-intercept form of this line. So my equation would be y equals, same slope, negative 2/5 x, y-intercept, minus 3. Part D, we're writing a line that's perpendicular to the given line. Remember, perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. I cannot see the slope in this equation that's written in standard form. I have to get it in slope-intercept form first. Again, that means to get y by itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of the x term. It's positive, so I'm going to subtract it away, and I have to do that to both sides of the equation. So now I have, don't lose that sign, it's a negative 2y equals, not 2y equals, negative 4x plus 8, since that 8 is positive. Now to get the y by itself, I have to undo that multiplication by dividing by negative 2. Remember, both sides get divided by negative 2. That means both terms are divided by negative 2, not just one of them. So we get y equals, my slope is the number in front of x, which is negative 4 divided by negative 2. That's a positive 2x. My y-intercept, which was really not needed, is 8 divided by negative 2, which is negative 4. All I really need from this given line is its slope. Now remember, we don't want to use the same slope because perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. So the slope of this line is 2, it's positive, so my slope has to be negative, and then it has to be the reciprocal of 2. 2 is 2 over 1, so its reciprocal is 1/2. So my opposite reciprocal slope would be negative 1/2. Opposite sign, flipped fraction. I want to go through the point 8, 4, so I will need to use point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So I would have y minus, my y coordinate of my given point is 4, equals my new slope, the opposite reciprocal of 2, which is negative 1/2, times x minus my x coordinate of the given point, which is 8. Now I need to get it in slope-intercept form. I would begin by distributing the negative 1/2. Negative 1/2 times x is, of course, negative 1/2 x. Watch your signs here. Negative times negative makes this positive, and half of 8 is 4. Now we have to use the inverse operation of subtraction to get y by itself, so we add 4 to both sides, and we get y equals negative 1/2 x plus 8. So my slope is negative 1/2, my y-intercept is 8.